Hey everyone! So, if you're anything like me a few months ago, you probably thought grocery shopping is just part of life, right? Well, let me tell you. I was seriously addicted to buying groceries. I would grab anything that looked good, fill my cart, and honestly, sometimes I didn't even check my budget. Yeah, we've all been there, haven't we? We tell ourselves we need all these items, but really, most of it just ends up being more stuff we don't even use. I mean, how many times have I bought a bunch of fancy snacks or a whole shelf of must-have ingredients, only to find they're gathering dust in my pantry? Way too many times to count. I don't know what it was, but for some reason I developed this habit of hitting the grocery store all the time. Like, I loved going. It wasn't just about getting what I needed. No, it became this strange addiction. I would walk through the aisles like a kid in a candy store, picking up things that weren't even on my list. And before I knew it, my cart was filled with stuff I didn't really need, and honestly, I didn't even want half of it once I got home. That was my routine. Get groceries, get home, repeat. But what was I really doing? Waste, stress, overload. And I wasn't even aware of it. Here's where it really got out of hand. I'd come home from the store, unload all the bags, and watch the groceries pile up. My kitchen was constantly overflowing with random stuff. Canned goods I didn't use, boxes of cereal I hadn't touched in months, and tons of processed foods that I had zero intention of cooking with. I had shelves full of things, and yet I found myself running to the store again the next week because I was missing something essential, or so I thought. But here's the thing. Despite all this food, I was still stuck in a cycle. It wasn't making me happier. In fact, it started to feel like a bit of a trap. The more I bought, the more stressed I felt. I was spending more money than I realized, and the worst part? I didn't even enjoy half the food I was buying. It was just stuff. Stuff that didn't even add value to my life, and I was constantly stressed about space, money, and having to organize everything. And that's when it hit me. This isn't working anymore. The endless grocery hauls, the cluttered kitchen, the random purchases. It wasn't just taking up physical space, it was taking up mental space too. So I decided I needed to make a change. I didn't know exactly where I was headed yet, but I knew it was time to find a solution to this shopping addiction. So I started asking myself, what could I do with all this energy and time spent shopping? I wanted something more fulfilling, something that could give me that same satisfaction but in a healthier and more sustainable way. That's when I stumbled onto something that completely turned my world upside down. Gardening. Now I know what you're thinking. Gardening? What's that got to do with grocery shopping? Well, stay tuned because that's where the transformation really began. And trust me, it's a game changer. So if you've ever been stuck in that endless cycle of buying more than you need, or just feel like you're constantly stressed about your food situation, you'll want to hear how I went from grocery addict to garden queen. And no, it wasn't an overnight fix, but it was the best decision I've ever made. So let me take you back to the moment it all started to click. One afternoon, I was standing in my kitchen, surrounded by bags of groceries, and for the first time in a while, I felt overwhelmed. I looked at the counters, the fridge, the pantry, all stocked with food. But it wasn't a feeling of accomplishment, it was more like, what am I doing with all this? It was like I was living in a grocery store. Piles of items I didn't need, didn't want, or hadn't even planned for. It was all just there. I stared at the unopened bags of chips, the fancy sauces I bought on impulse, and those random ingredients for recipes I'd never actually make. and I thought, this is ridiculous. It wasn't even about the money anymore. It was the mental and physical clutter that I couldn't ignore anymore. I had too much stuff, and it wasn't making me happy. And that's when it hit me. Why was I putting so much energy into buying things I didn't even use? It was almost like I was trying to fill a void with stuff, but it wasn't working. I wasn't happy with what I had. I had everything I thought I wanted, but it didn't add anything of value to my life. So I started thinking, what if I could make a real change? Not just in the way I shopped, but in the way I lived. I remember scrolling through social media one day when I came across this simple gardening video. You know, one of those easy, how to start a small garden kind of things. At first, I wasn't sure what to make of it. I mean, I had zero experience with plants. The last time I tried to grow something was in middle school. And even then, I couldn't keep a cactus alive. But as I watched the video, something clicked. It wasn't just about growing plants. It was about growing something real, something I could be proud of, and something that didn't require a trip to the store every week. So that's when I decided to give it a shot. I didn't know anything about gardening, but what I did know was that I needed to break free from the cycle of endless shopping. I was tired of feeling like I was being controlled by my need to buy all the time. What if I could take that same energy and put it into something that actually benefited me in a way that felt fulfilling? That's when I decided to grow my own food. I started small, real small. I picked up a few pots, some soil, and basic starter plants. Herbs like basil and mint and some lettuce. Nothing fancy. Just enough to see if I could really make this work. I was nervous at first. What if I failed? What if nothing grew? But then I remembered, gardening, like anything else, is a process. It's about trying and learning along the way. And honestly, that thought was freeing. I didn't have to be perfect at it right away. So I started planting. I watered, I watched, I learned. And you know what? It felt good, really good. It was like I was doing something productive, something real. And for the first time in a while, I wasn't thinking about buying the next new thing or running to the store every week. My plants were enough. Okay, so now that I'd taken the leap into gardening, the next phase was where the real magic happened. You know, it wasn't just about planting seeds and watching them grow. It was about a transformation. I'm not just talking about the plants in my garden, but about me, too. The more I took care of my little plants, the more I started to feel this sense of peace and accomplishment that I hadn't felt in a long time. Let me tell you, there is something so incredibly satisfying about seeing your hard work pay off. The first time I saw a tiny sprout peeking out of the soil, I was on cloud 9. It was like a little sign that I was doing something right. I'd wake up every morning, check on them, water them, and even talk to them a little. Don't judge, plants need love too. As the days passed, the plants started thriving. I was growing my own basil, mint, and lettuce, stuff I actually use all the time in my cooking. I couldn't believe it. I didn't need to rush to the store for my salad fixings or fresh herbs. I had them right in my backyard. And let me tell you, that feeling of going outside, picking something from the garden, and bringing it straight to my kitchen, priceless. And that's when I realized this was no longer just a fun little hobby. This was a lifestyle change. I started replacing store-bought groceries with things I grew myself. Tomatoes? They were now coming from my garden. Lettuce? Same deal. My kitchen had completely transformed from a cluttered mess of random grocery items to a space where fresh homegrown food was the star. But wait, it gets even better. I started experimenting more. I tried growing things I never thought I could. Bell peppers, strawberries, even cucumbers. At first, I wasn't sure how they would do, but seeing the tiny fruits start to grow on the plants was like watching magic happen. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually doing this. And the best part? I didn't have to buy them from the store, which meant I was saving money. I was spending less on groceries, which I never thought would be possible. It wasn't just the money I was saving that made me feel good, though. It was the sense of accomplishment. It felt amazing to know that I was creating something from scratch, something real. It was no longer about having a full fridge or pantry. It was about quality, sustainability, and control over what I put in my body. I knew exactly what went into my food, and that made all the difference. All right, So here I am now, standing in my garden, feeling like I've come so far. If you'd asked me a year ago if I'd be a full-on garden queen, I would have probably laughed it off. But here I am, surrounded by all the green goodness I've grown myself. And you know what? I'm not stopping here. Oh no, this is just the beginning. I've got big plans for my garden, and I'm not just talking about more tomatoes and basil. Now that I've mastered the basics, lettuce, herbs, tomatoes, I'm looking to level up. I'm talking about growing more advanced things, like larger fruits, unique vegetables, and even experimenting with things I never thought I could grow. Can you imagine picking your own homegrown peppers, cucumbers, and even berries straight from your garden? That's the dream, and it's within reach. I've started researching ways to grow even more variety. For example, I've been diving into how to grow things like pumpkins and squash. On top of that, I've been getting into more sustainable gardening practices. One thing I've really been looking into is composting. I mean, it's wild to think about how much food waste we throw away every day. I decided, why not turn that waste into something that helps my garden grow? I started composting my kitchen scraps, things like vegetable peels, coffee grounds, and eggshells, turning them into nutrient-rich soil for my plants. Not only does it help my garden, but it's a step toward reducing waste and being more eco-friendly. So cool, right? I'm also experimenting with DIY plant food. I've been making my own liquid fertilizer with simple ingredients like fish emulsion and seaweed extract. Honestly, it's so much more rewarding to know I'm feeding my plants with natural homemade nutrients instead of relying on store-bought chemicals. But the best part of all this? I'm not doing it alone anymore. I've started sharing my garden experiences with friends and family, and it's been incredible to see them get inspired too. Some of them have started their own gardens, and we all swap tips, advice, and even our harvests. It's like this little community of garden enthusiasts, and I'm loving it. The connection we share is so much deeper than just growing food. It's about creating something that brings us together, supporting each other, and learning from one another. As my garden continues to grow, so does my excitement for the future. I'm looking forward to the day when I can start sharing my harvests with my neighbors, hosting garden parties, and even starting a small little garden stand. But you know what? The most fulfilling part of all of this is how much I've learned. Not just about gardening, but about myself. I've gone from someone who used to mindlessly buy groceries to someone who now knows the value of growing my own food. It's empowering, and it's something I'm so proud of. Looking ahead, I'm going to keep pushing myself, keep experimenting, and keep learning. Because the garden isn't just about food, it's about embracing a new way of living. One that's more sustainable, more connected, and more fulfilling. If you're thinking about starting your own garden journey, go for it. Even if you've never picked up a shovel before, trust me, you can do it. Start small and let it grow, literally. So, thanks for joining me on this journey from grocery addict to garden queen. It's been a wild ride, and I'm excited for what's to come. If you're feeling inspired, go ahead and start your own garden. Trust me, you won't regret it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more gardening tips and updates. And in the comments below, let me know. What would you love to grow in your own garden? Or if you're already gardening, what's your favorite plant to grow? I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, happy gardening.